Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a great guest on. Now, this guest has a several roles in different organizations, different things that he has going on, and came as a referral from the RevTech Labs. I mean, because that is a place that really is connecting with a lot of entrepreneurs that are making some major moves in the industry. So I definitely wanted to have Andre Walters on. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we jump into the businesses that you're running and the great things you have kicking off, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm a lawyer by trade. I like to say recovering lawyer. So it's been a while, but I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, born in Brooklyn, New York, raised in Wilmington from the age of about 5, and ended up staying in Delaware for college. So I went to the University of Delaware for undergrad, degree in English, and knew I wanted to go to law school kind of the whole time. So that was my aim. And ultimately got accepted to the University of Baltimore School of Law in Maryland, and went there and got my law degree and got out of there and started practicing with a commercial lending firm, commercial real estate finance transactions, doing drafting contracts, negotiating deals, closing deals for major banks. So Bank of America, at the time Wachovia, now Wells Fargo, et cetera. And that's really where I became, I guess you would say, a transactional lawyer. And it had a tremendous opportunity, man, through a cold call one day, literally a cold call. I picked up the phone and called the then general counsel of the Charlotte Bobcats at the time, now Hornets. And, crazy story, long story, but the long and short of it is that when he got my call that day, he was expecting a call from another guy named Andre that makes suits. And he got me first. And from that initial moment of mistaken identity, we formed a relationship. Next thing I know, I got hired, a few weeks later to be director of legal affairs for the Charlotte Bobcats, eventually became vice president of legal affairs, kind of ran that legal department for the team. I was there from 07 to 13 before launching out on my own to jump into the world of entrepreneurship. And then along the way, went and got my master's in business administration from the University of North Carolina, Keenan Flagler.
Gotcha.
And, that's how I kind of rounded things out. And every day I'm on the entrepreneur grind now, every day.
Now, how was it making that, that switch from, practicing law in someone else's organization to making that leap over to thinking like an entrepreneur and functioning like an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so scary, I think, is the best way that I would describe it, initially at least, right? But I kind of feel that everyone has a little bit of an entrepreneur in them. It's just a matter of how much do you bring it out, right? And so for me, that was part of my thinking and going back to school anyway, to get that business degree, to round myself out, because I'm coming from a liberal arts background, right? And, and then I go to law school. So, working on spreadsheets wasn't exactly my thing. And so business school kind of forced me to be that. So, that made it a little better, I think, when I first made the leap. But, anytime you jump into entrepreneurship, it's really a series of unknowns. You don't know if the customers will ultimately support what you have. You have no idea exactly how it's all going to come to be. You're confident in the vision. And that's the whole thing. So yeah, at first, a little scary, a little challenging, but I think it forces you to be good. Like, you got to read books. You got to figure out how to do this thing, because going back is not an option. Right. So, and that was my thinking all along. And, when I launched out with this tech company first called, we did this for about 4 years, man. And it was eye-opening, right? We had a lot of fun, a lot of good times, and a lot of heartaches. Raising money for a venture is really challenging. And we did it for a few years. We raised some decent money, but eventually you just can't raise it fast enough. But it was during that process that I got introduced to what I do now, which is Duck Donuts. Okay. Literally a member from the startup team that I created one day just asked me, "Hey, you ever heard of Duck Donuts?" And we did stuff like that in the office, right? It was like, "Nah, what's Duck Donuts?" It was like, best donuts in the world. I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, just bring me some chocolate frosted then, if you, I'm just thinking regular donuts." And then when they brought it the next day, man, it was like everything was in slow motion. It was crazy. I'd never forget it. It was like they brought the box, they opened the box, and I looked at the donuts and they were so pretty. I'm thinking to myself, what kind of donut place is this? And then I reach in the box, I pick one up, it's like slow motion. And I'm like, what? Everything's crazy. It's warm. Then I bit it, and everything changed from that moment. The whole trajectory of my life changed, because I said right then and there, I want a franchise in this particular franchise. And, through a series of contacts and LinkedIn and all kinds of stuff, I eventually got a meeting with Duck Donuts and opened the first location in Atlanta, Georgia in 2017.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Now, I guess prior to this, had franchising ever crossed your mind?
Never, not once, right? Not once. And it's funny because when you think about franchising, it literally surrounds us. Like every day, if you drive down the street, you're looking at a bunch of units, typically franchisee-owned units, and all these various brands, right? So from McDonald's when you're a kid to, whatever, Burger King, Wendy's, you name it. So it's really interesting that I'd never really thought about it like that, but clearly it's been surrounding me the whole time. What I realized though is that, if you find the right franchise, it can be a nice hybrid between what I was in, which was high growth, and sort of some predictable businesses. And Duck Donuts really fit that category, just an innovation story that I felt like ultimately really had the potential to be something significant. And I felt like it was closer to the earlier stages, right? So combining the early stage with the, growth potential kind of tickled my fancy. And then the product is it's undeniable. Anybody who's ever bit a Duck Donut, they know the moment you bite it, your world's going to change. I promise. Not just the donut. It's not an ordinary donut.
Awesome. So one of the questions that I think, maybe this is for, selfish reasons of understanding, because I work with small businesses and with startups, and there's a franchise client that I work with. And one of the things that I've kind of observed is, when you get into a franchise, a lot of times they teach you the operational, just kind of like, how to get things done. But I guess when you've looked or your experience with franchises, how much do they actually help you understand and grasp kind of like the finance and the accounting side of running a franchise?
I think that's a great question. I mean, it depends on the franchise is what I would say. I've been lucky and fortunate for now the couple of brands that I've attached to, one being Duck Donuts. And then we recently announced that we're launching a location of Salada, which is a made-to-order salad franchise in the Charlotte, North Carolina market, right uptown on Tryon Street. So, we've been very fortunate. My partner and I, Derek Brown, we kind of joined forces with our company, Fenix. Now we do this franchise thing together. But we've been fortunate to get with some franchises that make that a point of emphasis, right? That understand that that's the key to any franchisee's success. And so they're really cognizant of the systems required to be able to do that. And so, yeah, we have regular sort of interactions when it comes to the finances and financial systems, et cetera. So, I think, again, it really depends on the franchisor. And, ultimately, hopefully, they're aligned incentive-wise with the franchisee to help them succeed financially. Because, if you don't have successful franchisees, you really don't have a successful franchise. That's what it boils down to. So.
No, I agree. So for the Duck Donuts, how many locations or where are the locations that your franchise is located?
So our group, so Fenix, we have 4 total. We have 2 in the Charlotte area right now. We have another 2 in Atlanta for Duck Donuts, and of course working on more locations in the near future. And some people in Charlotte will be happy about that, but we'll be announcing that soon enough. But nationwide, Duck Donuts has well over, I think we're about 100 open right now, with several kind of in the pipeline. And it's a really growing franchise. Newsweek actually just named it #1 customer service in our category. So we beat out Dunkin' and Krispy Kreme. So that's good. Those are positive things. So I think that it's just a growing franchise that, I'm happy. I'm fortunate, obviously blessed to be associated with it at this stage of its life cycle. Right. And that's the key. You want to catch things on the way up versus McDonald's that's been here for decades and it's hard to get good territory, et cetera. So.
Gotcha. And then the other franchise, or I guess what other franchise other than Duck Donuts is the group involved in?
Salada is our major one right now. And so Salada is based out of Houston, Texas. And so it's a made-to-order salad franchise. So, think same way you do Duck Donuts. When you walk in, Duck Donuts, a customer says, hey, I think I want these 12 donuts. They can create their own donut versus having to
Gotcha.
deal with whatever's on the shelf that's been sitting there from, yesterday, right? So we don't do that in Duck Donuts. It's all made to order. And so same concept when it comes to Salada. You walk in and say, all right, I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They've got 80 plus ingredients. It's amazing. So we just, again, I tend to lead with my my palate. I think when it comes to the services or franchises that I'm interested in, Duck was the bite of a donut and Salada was the taste of a salad, honestly. And so they were just like Duck, kind of started around the same time and expanding, rapidly. And it's more of a Southwest concept right now, moving its way over to the East Coast. And we were just fortunate to be able to jump into the Charlotte market and introduce it to this particular market. So that's what we have going right now as a group. For me, I'm also involved in coaching people on trading stock options. That's the other thing I do. So I've got a club called the Fenix Options Club. So a lot of that corporate finance, B school type thinking combined with some years of trading. And I just decided to really start, coaching people and educating people over a few sessions in terms of how to think about the market, how the game is actually played and how they can participate in it to leverage their money to ultimately make decent returns through stock options. And we started this back, it was a pandemic company. A lot of entrepreneurs started a pandemic company. This was mine. And we started in June, and today, man, we're already at 170 members. So
Nice.
It's cool, yeah. So it's really been blossoming, and so much more to come on that. Just trying to do my part, man. I think finances are really important to the movement of our culture being advanced, and I just want to do my part. So.
Awesome. Now, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about, the new franchises the group is in, and they want to learn more about the stock option trading as well?
Yeah. So for the stock options, phenixoptions.com. So FENIXOPTIONS.com. In terms of sort of everything else, I'm on Instagram, for example, Phoenix Dre, FENIXDRE. Find me on there. And then I'm on LinkedIn. So we'll be posting a lot of things, through these channels, basically to keep people up to date in terms of the projects that we're in. And then we'll be launching something for our group here in the next 30 days. Actually, we're working on it to really communicate all the things that we're into. We got a lot of cool things in store. So it's going to be exciting to see how it all develops.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, one question I like to ask every guest that comes onto the show is like, when you think about, your journey from, your legal background, the first company that you were running to now, the different ventures that you're getting into now, what's two pieces of advice that you would share with other business owners?
One is perseverance. So persevere, right? You will without a doubt reach points where you want to quit. You want to stop. It gets too hard, right? Yeah. But you really have to remember the vision. And so it's go after the vision at all costs, right? Maybe not every cost, you don't want to sacrifice kind of your values or, things you really care about, like your family, find time to balance that as well. But from a business perspective, you have to persevere, man. You got to push through. And the other thing I would say is keep learning. Right? Like it's always a process to find out more, to get better, whatever you're doing. It's like being an athlete. Every day you got to get better and better. So I live on Amazon, for example. I'm in my office now, got a library of books here. When I see topics of interest, I don't hesitate to buy something so that I can read up on it. There's a lot of, nowadays, there's really no excuse to not learn something or figure it out. I mean, the information is it's abundant. Now, maybe a little overwhelming at times, but you gotta keep learning, keep growing, ultimately. And like I said, persevere, man. Don't quit. It's the ones that I've seen, all the successful entrepreneurs I've ever seen. When you look at their story, the common factor is that they just kept going. That's the magic formula, right? Just keep going. Yeah. At some point, it works out, right? If you're stubborn enough to keep going. So do that and you'll be fine.
Awesome. Well, Andre, thank you so much for coming on the show, telling us a lot about, the great things that you have going on. We'll definitely include some links so people can follow you on Instagram, on LinkedIn, check out your website to see the great stuff you got going on. And again, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.